For decades, a state of war has defined the relationship between Lebanon and Israel. Their shared border has been a flashpoint for conflict, marked by cycles of violence that have cost thousands of lives and destabilized the region. On June 26, 2026, a significant development emerged from this long history of hostility. Following intensive talks in Washington, D.C., the government of Lebanon signed a new framework agreement. The government of Israel signed a new framework agreement. This landmark accord, brokered with the heavy involvement of the United States under Secretary of State Marco Rubio, represents a determined effort to end the conflict and security between the two neighboring countries. The journey to this agreement was paved with conflict and shifting political dynamics. The groundwork was laid in the years prior, particularly following a major escalation in 2024 that saw Israel launch a series of attacks, which significantly diminished Hezbollah's military capabilities. A fragile ceasefire in November 2024 failed to hold, leading to further violence. The Iran War, which began in February 2026, saw Hezbollah re-enter the conflict on a massive scale, launching over 1,300 waves of attacks on Israel. This renewed and devastating escalation created the conditions for a diplomatic opening, prompting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to direct the opening of contacts with the Lebanese government in April 2026 to address the volatile situation. This trilateral framework agreement is not a final peace treaty, but a crucial first step. It outlines a sequenced process designed to untangle the complex security dilemma on the border. The document, signed by the ambassadors of both nations in the presence of their American counterparts, is built on a shared ambition to end the state of war and establish peaceful, neighborly relations. It is the first time since the short-lived 1983 agreement that officials from both countries have engaged in such direct, Washington-based negotiations. The accord aims to empower the Lebanese government, strengthen its sovereignty, and create a new strategic reality in a region long defined by proxy warfare. President Donald J. Trump's administration has heavily promoted the deal as an extension of its broader regional peacemaking efforts, most notably the Abraham Accords. The framework is seen by its proponents as a historic opportunity to reshape the Middle East, moving beyond decades of entrenched conflict toward a new era of normalization. The 14-clause trilateral framework agreement is built upon a clear and fundamental premise. Its core objective is to transition from a state of war to a process of direct negotiations for lasting peace. The document establishes several key provisions that structure this transition. First and foremost, it includes a mutual recognition by each state, sovereignty, the right to exist in peace. This provision is a landmark diplomatic achievement. It marks Lebanon's first official recognition of Israel's sovereignty since a brief annulled agreement in the early 1980s, laying a new foundation for bilateral relations. A central component is a phased Israeli withdrawal from pilot zones in southern Lebanon, areas Israel has occupied since the fighting reignited. However, this withdrawal is explicitly conditional. It is tied to the Lebanese government's ability to disarm non-state armed groups, a clear reference to Hezbollah, and to dismantle their military infrastructure, ensuring no security vacuum is left for hostile forces to exploit. The agreement mandates a significant role for Lebanon's state institutions. It outlines a phased framework for the Lebanese army to deploy into the south and restore the state's authority across all of Lebanon's territory. This runs in parallel with the disarmament of Hezbollah and other militias. By empowering the Lebanese army, the accord seeks to ensure the Lebanese government, not external actors like Iran or Hezbollah, receive strategic credit for withdrawal. This bolsters state legitimacy and affirms sovereignty over security and territory, a long-stated goal of the government in Beirut. Beyond security, the framework includes commitments to de-escalate tensions in other arenas. Both Israel and Lebanon pledge to cease hostile actions in international political or legal forums. a measure of good faith to build trust as they move toward direct talks. The agreement also includes a humanitarian clause, work toward the search for and return of remains, the release of detainees. These provisions, though secondary, are crucial for building the political will for comprehensive peace. The Trilateral Framework Agreement is not just a pact between Lebanon and Israel. The United States is a signatory and a central pillar of its architecture. The U.S. role extends far beyond simply brokering the talks. It is positioned as the primary overseer of the agreement's implementation. It is a guarantor of the process. It is a key provider of the incentives needed to make the deal work. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the accord as a first step toward a broader arrangement. He emphasized that American diplomacy would remain deeply engaged to ensure its success. This direct American involvement provides political weight previous initiatives lacked. Washington's influence is most evident in how the agreement links security. It links security to economic support. It links security to reconstruction. The deal explicitly connects progress on disarmament. It also connects the restoration of Lebanese state authority. Both are tied to the provision of international aid. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut said the agreement offers a realistic path out of the conflict. Washington will support rebuilding Lebanon's security apparatus. This creates a powerful incentive for the Lebanese government. While the Lebanese government officially signed the framework agreement, the deal has exposed and deepened the profound political divisions within the country. The central challenge to its implementation comes from Hezbollah, the powerful Iran-backed armed group and political party. Hezbollah was not a party to the negotiations and has vehemently rejected the accord. The group's deputy leader, Naim Qassem, immediately denounced the agreement as humiliating, shameful, and a surrender of sovereignty. This outright rejection from the most dominant non-state actor in Lebanon places the government in an extremely precarious position and casts a long shadow over the deal's viability. Hezbollah's opposition is not merely rhetorical. The group possesses a formidable military arsenal that rivals that of the Lebanese army, and it holds significant political power, including seats in parliament and deep-rooted support in large segments of the population, particularly within the Shiite community. The Lebanon-Israel Framework Agreement carries implications that extend far beyond their shared border, promising to send ripples across the entire Middle East. For Israel and the United States, a primary strategic goal of the accord is to weaken Iran's regional influence. For decades, Iran has projected power through a network of proxy organizations, with Hezbollah serving as its most successful and powerful forward position. By empowering the Lebanese state to disarm Hezbollah and assert its sovereignty, the deal aims to dismantle a key pillar of Iran's axis of resistance. A stable, sovereign Lebanon, free from the grip of Iranian-backed militias, would significantly curb Tehran's ability to threaten Israel and destabilize the Levant. The agreement is also viewed as a potential catalyst for expanding the Abraham Accords, the series of normalization deals between Israel and several Arab nations. U.S. officials, including Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, have openly spoken of an epic vision where normalization with Lebanon could be followed by Syria and even Saudi Arabia. The second Trump administration has reportedly made expanding the accords a top foreign policy priority, and this framework is seen as a major step in that direction, demonstrating that negotiated peace is possible even with a long-standing adversary. The path to implementing the Lebanon-Israel Framework Agreement is fraught with formidable risks and obstacles that could derail the entire process. The most immediate and significant challenge is the unyielding opposition of Hezbollah. As a heavily armed and politically entrenched actor, Hezbollah has both the capability and the motivation to resist disarmament. Any attempt by the Lebanese army to forcibly disarm the group could trigger a violent internal conflict, a scenario that Lebanese leaders are desperate to avoid. The government's ability to navigate this challenge without plunging the country into civil war is the single greatest test the agreement faces. Another major obstacle lies in the fundamental disagreement over sequencing. The framework is built on a conditional Israeli withdrawal, but the two sides interpret this differently. Israel, under Prime Minister Netanyahu, insists its military will remain in the occupied buffer zone until Hezbollah disarms. In contrast, the Lebanese government argues that an Israeli withdrawal must come first, as this would restore sovereignty and give the Lebanese army the political space and legitimacy to operate. This chicken-and-egg dilemma could lead to a protracted stalemate, with each side waiting for the other to act, breeding mistrust and ultimately causing the deal to collapse. The 2026 Lebanon-Israel Trilateral Framework Agreement stands at a critical juncture, presenting two starkly different potential futures for the region. In the best-case scenario, the accord serves as the opening chapter of a new strategic era. Following the sequenced plan, the Lebanese government successfully builds a national consensus around the need for peace and sovereignty. With careful political maneuvering and the promise of substantial international reconstruction aid, the Lebanese army gradually deploys into the pilot zones in the south. Hezbollah, facing domestic pressure and a changing regional landscape, agrees to a phased integration of its armed wing into the state, avoiding a catastrophic internal conflict. This positive trajectory would see a verified disarmament process unfold, allowing for a full and final Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory. Southern Lebanon, for decades a battlefield, would begin to transform. International investment would pour in, rebuilding towns and infrastructure, creating new economic opportunities in agriculture, technology, and tourism. The outcome hinges on whether the promise of stability can outweigh the peril of confrontation.